Greetings everyone, welcome to the Impressions where I present a game and you'll decide if I pique your interest. The review premise is the perspective of a casual player with constructive criticism and an occasional sprinkle of game development insight. Today's game is Ravenlok, a small indie project created by Cococucumber, a Toronto-based developer and publisher. According to the website, 10 people make the team, although the game credits recognize 13 developers. It is a small team and a small game. The tale of Ravenlok is loosely based on Alice in Wonderland, with Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There by Lewis C. Carroll. The story is straightforward, a classic telling of a prophecy and our heroine being the realm's savior. The story is nothing unusual or fresh, but it sets the mood and the heroine's purpose/objective. Bear in mind that this video will contain spoilers, although with the story's simplicity, I'm not finding them spoiling the fun too much. The gameplay mechanics available are known from many action RPGs. Combat, puzzles, side quests, inventory, character level progression, boss encounters and collectibles. Apart from the mentioned mechanics, the game features a simple setting for game difficulty. Users can switch it at any time, and it works by simply raising the received damage by the main character. The movement of our heroine is simple. Character moves in 4 directions by walking or running, and also can dash. Apart from basics, there is melee combat, which features 2 consequential sword attacks, right to left and left to right, and blocking with a shield. Blocking uses stamina, so it's very similar to the blocking from Souls-like games. Additionally, for melee combat there are magic skills, a total of 4, which are helpful in boss encounters. 2 other mechanics are expanding the combat, health potions and grenades. Both are available during combat from the quick inventory. Accessing them pauses the game, giving the player time to select the desired item and, if it is a grenade, to aim at the selected enemy. Overall, movement and combat are very well thought through, although one thing that might become problematic is the camera work. The whole game is designed with a retro side view, like games from the 90s. The difference is that the camera position is not fixed. It is possible to reposition the camera around 15 degrees in all directions, left, right, top and bottom. Unfortunately, in a 3D environment during the boss encounters, the player sometimes might end up in a location where the boss is not visible, and anticipating an attack is extra troublesome. Not that the game's difficulty is severe for experienced players. Speaking about difficulty, apart from fighting, the player is presented with occasional puzzles that are moderately simple and easy to complete. Only one puzzle required me to use a piece of paper and write down the hints. Throughout the game, you can pick up some additional quests, which most are connected to the story progression. There are side quests which did not give me the impression of being vital. Along those 2, the game also features collectibles, particular figurines hidden around. After collecting some, the player can exchange the figurines for rewards like health potions. Leveling the heroine is very simple. Defeating the enemies gives the player feathers, equivalent of experience points, and then a player can spend those on NPC to level up. The power of heroine also raises the power of sword attack and her magic skills. The cost of leveling up increases logarithmically. Apart from the gameplay mechanics connected to the story and character, the game also features shops. At those, the player can purchase health potions or grenades, using gold from destroyed pots or fallen enemies. All the boss encounters are designed very well, the enemy attacks are well telegraphed and all the additional mechanics are easy understandable. The realm of Dunya is designed very linearly. The player has the freedom to travel anywhere, but most of the locations are locked behind an objective, whenever it is a quest, item or a boss fight. There are 2 hub locations. One is where player starts the journey and most of the friendly characters reside. The second is where a player can buy potions, level up and hand over the collectibles. A few locations have hidden entrances, require a particular item and then the heroine is teleported to the place. There is also a fast travel system incorporated in the form of mirrors. The world features custom arenas for each boss, which aren't available outside the combat. I assume this design choice was to block the player from leaving the arena. It also falls under the rules of this fantasy world. As an exception, one boss encounter is present in the world boundaries, or at least it appears so. Locations are relatively small, and enemies are respawned after returning to the area. Therefore, it's unlikely for the player to get lost, because the level design is easy to understand. Considering the game does not feature platforming, it's all very straightforward. The game's aesthetic is unique for the developer, pixel art in a 3D environment with voxel art. This title also features elements with the PBR method. For those unfamiliar with any of these terms, there are definitions on the screen. The source links will be in the video description if there is a desire for more information. As to the visual style, it is unique and definitely gives a proper look for such a fantasy tale, although it might come as incoherent. The pixel art on high poly models looks good with the voxel models, but the realistic ones stand out and it takes a while to get used to it. The whole UI is designed as a vector base, which stands out from the pixel/voxel approach. It is clean and readable, yet it might feel incoherent with the 3D environment. Each item the player picks up or receives is presented in a big UI pop-up. The HUD is visible only in combat, a pleasant surprise of a modern approach to user experience. Visual effects, such as weapon swipes or magic skills, are created in a stylized way. It matches the fantasy setting of the game. In the audio department, the game is very simplified. It does not feature voice actors, so a sound cue is played as a speaking character's imitation. There are sounds connected to combat, sword swings and hits, cues on magic skills, enemy attacks or screams. All this is accompanied by a pleasant to the ear score, which changes each time the area changes. So, the music works as a musical and ambient layer, as the game doesn't feature ambient sounds. It is not a robust system with different tempos and cues for specified situations. It's a simple system that does its job and creates a significant layer to the game. Before I start summarizing my thoughts, I'd like to point out that as a person over 30, I'm not a target audience. Official game ratings are PEGI 7 and ESRB E10+, therefore children and younger teenagers are the focused target audience. Considering that the game does not feature any visual depiction of violence like blood or wounds, I'd say that the game was developed with kids in mind. As I said earlier, the story is nothing new, another version of Alice in Wonderland with a personal touch. Although, in my opinion, it falls flat. The story and characters are very much black and white. There's no telling why the characters are evil or why they do what they do. Even Queen Dredda is evil because she needs to be the big bad. Despite the game targeting a younger audience, it would be nice to see some grey areas with the characters. For example, Shani the sorceress could be more than just a trader of dreams in exchange for a soul. The only character that feels very realistic is Ernest the botanist, a mantis who went mad after losing his wife and is trying to revive her using various specimens with bad results. After all, I can rate the story 6 out of 10. Simple, yet for me, too simple. As it would be unfair to rate all of the gameplay mechanics altogether, I'll go one by one. Movement and combat are decent and everything is well laid out in the tutorial. Although stamina mechanic feels redundant, cause it's not connected to sprinting, dashing or even swinging the sword. The only moment it's used is during blocking, which I didn't use outside the tutorial. The ability to sprint and dash without limit let me exploit it during the whole gameplay, which led to discarding the blocking mechanic. Also, pausing the game during quick inventory with health potions or grenades feels too much. I understand, it's a children's game, but 10% of regular speed would feel more compelling. In addition, the mentioned problematic camera behavior in boss rooms is consistent with world building. However, in the case of combat encounters, it is undesirable. I'll rate movement, combat and camera behavior together as 6 out of 10. It works, but the stamina implementation gives a vibe of unfinished mechanics, and the boss arenas would work better with a camera rotation of 360 degrees. Puzzles, side quests and collectibles are rated 6 out of 10. The puzzle amount is satisfactory and the difficulty/complexity is proper for the audience age. My favorite puzzle was the one with the cube mechanism, which required searching for environmental clues. As mentioned earlier, most side quests are connected to the main quest, therefore not so much as an optional activity. The game would benefit from hidden or additional quests to expand the lore. Another disadvantage of picking up side quests is a feeling of choice and exploration freedom, yet the game is, in fact, very much linear in its design. Character progression is straightforward, so it's a 9 out of 10. Simple system which can't even be too much exploited. Reset of enemies in the war areas is prone to be used for grinding the feathers. Fortunately, the player might be discouraged from such practice by the steep rise of level requirements. Shops are shops. All the items are available from the get-go, and the player collecting the coins from fallen enemies and breaking the pots will have no problem preparing for a boss fight. It's hard to put a score on such a base feature, but I'll give it 7 out of 10. Some of the items could have been unlocked later in the game. To close off the gameplay mechanics section, let's talk about bosses. The encounters with them are what they are supposed to be, a combat with a bigger and more demanding enemy. Some of those encounters also feature an element of combat puzzle. The rating will go as 7 out of 10. This game also fell into the recent trend, which I call reverse evolution. This happens when an enemy has several phases of combat, and with each phase the enemy evolves backwards. Like Queen Dredda in Ravenlok. First, she is a butterfly-like creature, and in the second phase, a twisted caterpillar. A similar thing happens in Outriders, when the Molten Akari is an enormous spider and, as a final form, a caterpillar-like. Of course, it could all be explained by some wicked rules of the world the game is set in, and for me it feels unnatural. Overall, I can rate all gameplay mechanics as 7 out of 10. Visually, the game falls under the category of kids game. Unfortunately, and personally, the combination of pixel, voxel and PBR doesn't feel cohesive, especially the inclusion of the PBR. For example, the heroine's sword has a shiny PBR material, and that's why it stands out from the character's pixel art visuals and her voxel shield. Understandably, the team attempted something new in comparison to previous games. For me, it needs more tinkering. What positively surprised me were the reflections in the mirrors. Such realistic reflections are a rarity in modern games. Well done. The visuals of UI and HUD are clear, understandable and easy to use. And the visual effects feel connected to the rest of the world. To summarize the visual style, I'll rate it 7 out of 10. I have not much to say about the audio design. The sound effects are well done and the music creates a pleasant atmosphere. I can rate it 6 out of 10 because one thing was quite annoying in the long run. It was the sound cue used for imitating a character's speech. One sound repeatedly hits your ears. It is not an enjoyable feeling. Additionally, the music score is available on streaming platforms. Although, in my opinion, the soundtrack works better in the game than as a standalone listening experience. The track that, for me, is enjoyable to listen to only lasts 1 minute on the album release. If I were to describe the game with one word, it would be wholehearted. An outcome of passion and love for creativity and stories about fantasy heroes saving the world. The game as a whole is rated 6 out of 10. It's great for kids, hence the defined target audience, and for people looking for something easy to pick up with relatively short gameplay time. Yet, for me, it feels unfinished in different places. I don't feel like there would be a moment when I'd love to return to the game through nostalgia. A couple game elements would benefit from slight quality of life improvements. This section is after the verdict because the following feedback shouldn't alter the whole experience or the game's reception, although it would have made my rating higher. First, the earlier mentioned sound cue of the character's speech. If it were a couple similar sound cues, it would make the NPC conversation less infuriating, as it wouldn't be one sound drilled into your head. The second improvement is the user experience. The game doesn't feature a word state system or player knowledge feature. This causes mild frustration when picking up the item with the same prompt, pop-up and character reaction over and over again. Also, speaking again with an NPC might make the player go through the conversation again. The lack of NPC memory, quite visible with the whipping fungi, is breaking the immersion. What do I mean by that? For example, a player can agree or disagree with whipping fungi. Disagreeing starts a boss encounter, yet agreeing has no effect, and talking to the NPC again will start the conversation as if the previous conversation never took place. There are also issues when the character does not have a particular quest and yet gets the conversations or quest items connected to it. This results in breaking the continuity of some events. This might have been the design from the beginning to make the game more accessible to the target audience. Anyhow, as I mentioned, it's mildly infuriating. The third improvement could be the mentioned earlier 360-degree camera behavior in boss arenas. This wouldn't break the immersion since most arenas are custom levels only available during encounters, and it would help with enemy visibility. Anyway, this is my critique and I stand by it. All the links are in the description. Thank you for watching, see you at the next one.